Hi guys, it's Will from Iconic Tours here in Edinburgh. Thanks for tuning in last time to check out the video on how to taste whiskey. Today we're going to look at the two most common types of whiskey you're going to come across from Scotland. That's going to be your single malts and your blended whiskey. Now, single malts are made from malted barley. Malted barley is barley that's been dried out, then soaked again to make it germinate. And before it fully germinates, they dry it out again and then they distill it. They distill it in a pot still, one of those kind of pretty stills you often see in your images of Scotland from distilleries. And it's distilled at least twice in Scotland before it is put into casks. But after one distillation process, you've got to clean out these pot stills. It's quite a laborious process, and as a result, they can't produce so much whiskey a year. Balvenie, for example, they produce about 5 million litres of whiskey a year. Macallan is the biggest producer. They have about 12 million a year. Now, for single malts, you get usually an age statement, like 15-year-old or a 12-year-old. Now, what that means is the youngest whiskey that's went into the Glenfiddich here, for example, is 15 years old. So when they make this whiskey, they're trying to have a consistent flavour. So what they do is they have the master blender who's going to taste lots of different casks in the distillery, and he's going to mix them together. They usually call marrying them together to make a consistent flavour. So they might have 15-year-old whiskey in this, some 17-year-old whiskey, some 18-year-old whiskey, some 30-year-old whiskey, but it's going to make the flavour they want. If it's just one cask they're going to use and bottle up, that will be a single cask, and I'll do another video about that in the future. But when it comes to blended whiskies, you've got a mixture of some malted whiskey into it. You've also got grain whiskey. Now, grain whiskey is made from wheat, it's made from maize, and about 10 to 20% malted barley mixed in with it. When it's distilled in a column still or a coffee still, it's sometimes called, and that's a continuous process. They can pump out a lot of grain whiskey every year. Up at Carsbridge, for example, which is owned by Diageo, they'll make about 110 million litres of grain whiskey a year. It's a huge, huge amount. So it's like almost 100 million litres more than Macallan's going to put out. Now, for different blends, you're going to get different amounts of malted whiskey mixed in with the grain whiskey. If it's at the cheaper end of the scale, maybe something like this, which is owned by Diageo, where you can probably pick this up for like £10 in Scotland quite easily. You're going to have maybe a little bit of single malt from places like, say, Glenkinchie or Cahuilla or Talisker or Dalwhinnie or Oban, all the places owned by Diageo going into here, but you're going to have a lot of the the Carsbridge whiskey going into there. And you go up to the other end of the spectrum for blends. You've got some of the high-end Johnny Walker whiskies, and some of those are also owned by Diageo. They are going to go for thousands of pounds. So they are quite different, just like single malts. Some single malts, like a Balvenie 12-year-old, you'll pick up for £40. You go up the other end of the scale, you have a Macallan 60-year-old, that's going to set you back a couple of millions. Now, sometimes there's a bit of snobbery about whiskey, and people, they turn down their noses at the blended whiskies. But the reality is, blends gives a lot to be thankful for. Blends are the whiskies that went round the world. These are the things that made Scottish whiskey famous, and they were famous before people knew about the single malt distilleries. The single malt distilleries in the past were only really supplying the blenders, but then they started forging their own identity, and they wanted to have their own single malt aspect of that as well, which is the stuff I prefer. Now, did Glenkinchie last time. I'm going to have a look at some of these ones today for a little tasting. Now, with the Glenfiddich 15, it's really nice. You're getting like fresh apples coming off that. Beautiful little whiskey. And really nice kind of vanilla. I'm going to have a little taste of that now. Nice little bit of spice in that. You get a little bit of the fruitcake that's coming through from the sherry there, just a little bit, but it's quite a quick finish to it. But it's nice and warming. I really like that. It's really quite nice. I'll try a little bit of the Balvenie next. It's a very fresh smell to the Balvenie, quite different from the Glenfiddich there. Very citrusy. but a lot smoother than Glenfiddich. That is a really nice little whiskey for the price point. You can't really grumble with that. Now, Balvenie Glenfiddich are owned by William Grant. William Grant has the Girvan Grain Distillers, and these things are all mixed together to go into the Monkey Shoulder. The Monkey Shoulder is usually anything between £30 to £40 here, so it's quite different price there. It's getting a bit more similar to a single malt. And you can see the colour is very similar in these ones. Also like these ones, you know, you've got a combination, the colour's looking quite similar. You've got, the smell is a real mixture of the two actually. I'm getting a bit of fresh fruit. I'm getting quite citrusy, quite floral. And it's very smooth, actually. The finish is very quick. You know, these ones are going to last a little bit longer. That'll be the grain that's making that just a little bit softer on it. But that's what people want. That's actually quite a good whiskey to get people trying whiskey for the first time. I remember when I was a kid and I'd go into a pub when I shouldn't have been in a pub really, and you get a whiskey, you think you're going to be all cool and adult-like, and you have some of it and you think it's absolutely awful. It's like, you know, how can people drink this stuff? But you're getting nice blends like this coming out now, and I will do a video just on blends and just on single malts. We'll look at some of the differences for that, but this is actually very nice whiskey. I like that. I'll open up this one when I do a video on blended whiskey in the future. I've got some whiskey I just ordered in the other day. I'm waiting for it to come in. But this one I've had in my cupboard for years. It's all covered in dust. And I've not ventured into that. This is going to bring back some memories from childhood. And hopefully you can join me for some more videos then. Okay, thanks.